Good day. Today is Friday, June 20th, 2025, and today I wanted to give a small breakdown of the Bridging Borders case study that we released on Tuesday through our newsletter. So we released that case study through the newsletter, and it should be available on the website next week. You get the case studies 1 week early from our newsletters, right? So you get early access if you're subscribed. In any case, let us begin. So what was this case study and what did it do? So the point of this case study was to look at an international company that spanned across a very large number of countries. It went from Europe to Australia to US and Canada. This multinational company, this global company, had an international deployment problem, right? So it had various problems with cultural frictions when transferring, when expatriating talent from one country to another. So instead of trying to invest money in more leadership training, what they decided to do first was to analyze what was causing the issue. So in order to do that, they used a two-report psychometric analysis, where they used TEIQue and DISC to analyze their recruits and not their recruits, but their international transfers, and what was causing the issues. So what was causing the benefits in some successful leaders, while what was hindering others. Now, what was the exact approach that they took? So the first thing first, they tested these leaders, these international deployment leaders, and implemented personal development plans and culture-specific plans, right? So they were cultivating these leaders through the personal development plans and culture-specific plans. And the outcomes, they found the results that follow. And what they discovered were five key elements of success, right? Through this analysis. So the first element, cultural lens effect. So the cultural lens effect essentially was creating a different outcomes from the same behaviors across cultures. The same behavioral patterns are differently perceived and can shift from being positive to being negative depending on the culture. So, for example, high dominance can be perceived as positive in some, as good leadership can be perceived as good leadership in some countries, while being perceived as overly aggressive in other countries. The second thing was identification of emotional intelligence. So the universal language of emotional intelligence was the second discovery. Despite differences in behavior, some key emotional intelligence facets showed consistency and consistent good results across different countries. Those facets were adaptability, empathy, and emotion perception. So regardless of the culture, so those facets showed remarkably good leadership results, leadership outcomes. Next, the third thing that was discovered was the fact that calibration is key. So ensuring that the leadership approach that you take is calibrated to the culture and is consistent with their perceptions of good leadership is one of the most important things for international deployment. So ensuring that the leadership remains effective despite cultural differences, right? So you are toning down and calibrating your style to ensure that the perception of leadership remains of an effective leader rather than an effectual leader. Fourth thing is that regardless of approach, all of the successful leaders, all of these internationally successful leaders have had good EI foundations. So they had solid EI foundations that allowed them to succeed. So given the cultural correction. And fifth is that some combinations of behaviors and emotional intelligence were successful universally. So regardless of the culture, they were successful universally. Next is what was finally, what were the outcomes of this entire program? So finding out and analyzing all of these outcomes, right, through the program. So they saw an improvement in the success of international deployments. They saw cross-cultural conflict reduced. They almost eliminated loss of talent due to failure of international deployments because the success rate increased so much. So yeah, and the final key takeaway is that despite all the differences, the language of emotional intelligence is universal. So cultivating good emotional intelligence and calibrating it for the right context and the right culture is key for success in leadership. So if you're interested in using some of our instruments that can gauge and develop your emotional intelligence, feel free to go to our websites, TEIQue.com and psychometriclab.com. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email me. I hope you enjoyed today's segment and see you tomorrow.